I'm Justin Perry, commercial retoucher and digital artist, and this is the Commercial Compositing Masterclass. I'm going to take you through the journey of creating this image, this one right here. It was shot by a buddy of mine and client, Jeff Wood, and we're going to just pull all of the pieces together and show you every thought process and every tip and trick that I use to get there. Now, unfortunately, I can't share Jeff's files, but hopefully you can follow along and take notes and apply these techniques to your own files to help you build your own composites and your own creative work. So without wasting any more time, let's get going. All right, so let's kick this off and get started. What I'm going to do first is kind of show you the end result. I'm going to show you where we're going in order to, you kind of have a feeling of what we're going to have to do to get there. Let me turn down my mic just a little bit. All right, so we are going to end with this photo. And if we zoom in here, we've got a little girl on the the punching bag here. We're going to have to bring the chain in. All of these are composited elements, so none of this exists in the base photo. We have mom, we have the boy down here with his toys. We're going to have to recreate shadows as we add them in, clean everything else up as when we're done. There's going to be some hair masking, swapping out some of mom's body parts here in order to kind of get the best, movement and flow in her hair and her arms. So there's going to be a lot that we're pulling together. So I'll also kind of flip through here so that you can see what I'm talking about. So, we have our base background. We're going to have to bring in some other elements here. This is the whole composite. So if we turn each one of these off, and we'll talk about layer organization and that sort of thing as we go. Remove the bag, remove the chain, remove mom. And each one of these is going to be a group of individual elements that we pull in to kind of make sure that they blend and that we've got, the shadows and everything placed correctly and color is placed correctly. So this is going to be a big undertaking that we're going to go on together. So because this is going to take so long and because we're going to be doing this over several hours of work, first, let's talk about ergonomics. We're going to make sure that we're sitting well in our chair. I know you're thinking, dude, that's not that important. It really is. We want to make sure our monitors are at an eye height. We don't want to be looking up or looking down. That's going to put strain on our neck and our back. We're going to get up every 30 minutes or so and do some stretches. Get around and walk, grab a coffee, step outside. You don't want to be sitting here for hours long stretches without actually moving your body. It's not going to be good for you. I have carpal tunnel and I can attest to this. So, make sure we're staying relaxed, make sure we're taking breaks, and let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to close this file. And when we get here, let's talk about our Photoshop layout here, because, you have all these different panels and all of these panels can be moved around and rearranged and, kind of tweaked to be where you want them. Your shortcuts are also all customizable. You can do anything you want here. I like to kind of set this up so that the things that I'm going to use the most often are forward and then everything else is kind of pushed away. I have a few other things up that I normally wouldn't because, recording the tutorial. But the important thing here is once you have these panels kind of set to the way you like them, and also you can move the toolbar around as well. So once you have these set to the way you like them, you can go to Window and Workspace and hit New Workspace and save this, give it a title. I'm going to title this Tutorial Workspace so I don't have to go back and set this back up again in the future. Select all of these, hit save. So now our workspace is set up. If we leave and come back, we'll be good to go. So the first thing that we probably want to do is start bringing in our first element. So we have, we've got a blank canvas here. Like, let's just start throwing some things on the page. So to do that, you could do this one of two ways. One way, I'm going to show you the bad way to do this, and then later on I'll show you why it's bad. And then I'm going to show you the good way to do it. So the bad way is just to literally, click and drag your first element in. I'm going to pull in mom first. Just click and drag her in. If you hold down the shift key while you drag something, it will place it centered and aligned with your existing photo. This is especially important if you have multiple images and you know that they're the same aspect and the same pixel density. You might as well drag them in without having them jump somewhere unaligned and have to fix that. So hold shift while you drag in and it'll place. Hit enter. And we have our first element in here, and you can see the softbox and scrims and things, so we're gonna have to remove all of those elements, but this is actually not how you want to do this. You will cause problems for yourself down the road if you bring in your composite elements this way, with selections and color correcting and stuff down the road. So we actually want to use smart objects instead. So we're going to go to File, Place Linked. Now there's Place Embedded and there's Place Linked. They do a very similar thing, but there's a distinct difference. So Place Linked is going to reference a file that is outside of your Photoshop file. So imagine, it's kind of like an alias. Like if, when you place the photo in, it's not the actual photo itself, it's referencing a version of it that lives outside. If you place embedded, it is actually placing a smart object version of the file within your file, and that comes with all of the file size issues and stuff that come with that. There's reasons to do both, but in this case, I'm going to do place linked. So as you'll see, it looks identical. And when I hit OK, it's going to seem like the exact same thing as before. However, what the difference here is this smart object thumbnail. It's this little link button down here in the bottom. This is how you know you have a linked smart object. So the cool thing about this is now if I double click the link icon, it's going to open up that photo. So I've got, this is my other file, and I've opened up the file that was linked in here separately. So here's what's cool about this. Any edit that we do on our linked smart object is going to show up on our actual image when we do that. So let's say I do all of this. Actually, let me do that on a new layer so I can undo it. Let's say I draw on this photo and I hit save. When I hit save and I get all of my normal save options like TIFF options and stuff like that, I hit OK. It is actually going to update those changes on my other file. So now we've switched back to our other file, and there it is. You can see the drawing. And if I want to go back and I want to change it again, I can double click the link, come in and keep editing. So what's going to be great about this is it's going to let us separate our elements out and control the edits that are happening within that file itself, and then reference that back in our composite, which is going to give so much more control than just dropping in a bunch of images and then trying to make selections and make hair masks and all of these other things on top of the images inside of here. We want to do them as linked smart objects. So watch, I deleted those edits, got rid of that layer. I hit save again, and then if we go back, it's going to update, and that weird squiggle is gone. So now that we understand smart objects, and we're going to talk about smart objects a lot as we go through here, the first thing we want to do is get mom out of here. So we've got, I'm not going to go too deep on how masks and everything work because I'm assuming you have some knowledge of Photoshop coming into here, but basically a mask is basically the white area you see, the black area you don't see. So if I make a selection, and I did that with my lasso tool, and then create let's say I make a solid color adjustment layer and hit OK. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I'm going to make my solid color first. Say I make a solid color adjustment layer, and this is the mask on that layer. So the white means that we're going to see everything that's on this layer. If I get a brush and I start brushing black on this mask, we're going to start to erase away the mask, which is erasing away our layer. And if we invert that by hitting X, hit X on your keyboard, and it will switch between black and white over here in your color palette. If you have a weird color selected, say something like this, and you hit D on your keyboard, it'll set this back to D for default. So just some shortcuts here. So We're going to hit X again, and we can paint onto this mask. And because we're painting onto the mask and not the layer itself, you can see that we can kind of add and remove elements out of our photo this way. So again, that was a very quick explanation of masks. But what we want to do is select mom. So, and then make a mask of her, basically, is what I'm getting at. So let's go and open up our paths palette. If you don't see it here, go to window and paths and open that up. And if we hit the, how do I get this out of the way? If we hit the new path button down here, and you always want to start with a new path. If you don't have a path selected and you grab your pen tool, we're going to make paths with the pen tool, and we start drawing, you will create a path. It'll just make a work path, and you can kind of work off of this and then use it for something else. But that's not automatically saved. So if you want to save that work path, you would then need to double click the path, over here on the work path and save it. So now I can save that as path 1. It is a much better workflow to just from the start be in the habit of creating a new path for each time you want a path. So we have our paths created. We have the pen tool selected, and we're going to come in and start pathing mom. Now, there are a lot of ways that you could make a selection of her, right? We have the quick select tool, the magic lasso tool, the select subject tool, all of these different tools to help and aid in making our selections quicker. The problem with all of them is that they are not magic. They are working off of math. And so what they're looking for is contrast within your scene. So anywhere where there's low contrast, Photoshop is going to have a very, very hard time making a clean selection. And we want the cleanest selections possible. So, in a second, I'll show you why this doesn't work, or why that wouldn't work, and why I'm pen tooling instead. But yeah, the pen tool, once you practice with it, you will get to the point where you are just as quick using the pen tool as you are doing anything else. So I would suggest highly that you go ahead and grab your pen tool as often as you can and you practice with it, because practice makes perfect, perfect makes quick, and quick means that we're making more money. So we want to be as quick as possible and as precise as possible, because we don't want to spend time redoing selections. That is the most annoying thing possible. So right here you can see that we have a rim light around the back of her leg and her butt, and if we had used the selection tool, it's possible that it could have grabbed this selection for us, right? Like it maybe would have worked. But as we come under her arm, there's no line here for the selection tools to have grabbed. So, based on the lighting in your scene, is kind of what determines whether or not you can use some of these other selection tools. But in this case, I'm telling you, it wouldn't work. It's not worth your time messing around with it. So here's where this starts to get interesting, because we're using the pen tool, right, which is making straight lines, but we want to select the hair. And obviously you're not going to pen tool around each one of these hairs. The best way I've found to do this is to get a solid selection around the person's body first. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to get her arm like that, so we have a clean line. And then I'm going to kind of do a rough outline, kind of close to the flyaways, but not entirely into flyaways, like this. And again, when we get back to her face, we're going to get a smooth selection around her face. And then we're going to keep going. And I'll show you how we're going to fix those flyaway hairs and how we're going to capture those next. But we first just need a good, clean selection of her body. And I also don't necessarily need to select her arm, because in our photographer's notes here, he made a comment that he wanted to select her arm separately, or to replace her arm. So, we could I'm going to go ahead and select this because it's nice to have a reference point later of where to put the new arm. If we didn't have this one, it would make that a little difficult. But again, talking about contrast, we know that there's enough contrast here. There's a lot of contrast between the edge of the glove and the background. So I don't need to select this with the pen tool. I'm not going to. I'm going to select that later using a quick selection tool and merge those two things together. So again, saving time, being efficient, we want to use strategies that are going to help us be quick. So in this case, I'm just going to go around the glove here and not select the glove and come back and get that later. Keep going under her arm. And really, I mean, I could probably get away with doing the same thing here, using the quick select tool instead. But you know, I'm here and I'm at it. So let's go ahead and just grab all of these things. And you know, pen tool tricks here while I'm doing this. Click and drag, you're going to get these little handles. If you hold Alt or Option on a Mac and click these handles, that's how you can readjust them. And you know, there's also what's called the rubber band option up here in your settings. So with rubber band turned on, it's going to kind of pre-draw a little bit of a line, a little bit of a curve based on your existing curve like that. You see, if that was turned off, you're not going to get that. It's really preference. It's kind of makes it quicker, but you know, you can do it without. It doesn't really matter. I like having it on. Why not? Kind of a mental thing. So let's go ahead and close up the selection. So that is her and her body. If we go to our path tool, we'll see that that path is there. I've already edited this photo, obviously, so I have an alpha channel over here with the selection. Ignore this alpha channel. Okay, do not let this confuse you. That is from when I edited this photo the first time. I just didn't want to necessarily do all of this over again, if that makes sense. So if we come back to our, we need to get her glove. So let's go ahead and get her glove. Select our background, hit W to bring up your selection options. I'm going to try the quick select tool and see if this works. Yeah, see, perfect selection of the glove. No use spending time pen tooling around the glove. So to save the selection for later, because we're going to want to use it, go to select, save selection. And when we hit save selection, we can name it. I'm going to name it glove. And it's going to save that as a new channel over here in our channels palette. If you don't see your channels palette, sometimes it's hidden under layers like this. I like to pull it off to the side so that I can see mine and access them easily. And also, if you don't see it, go to Window, Channels, and make sure that it is showing. So if you click on it, you'll see that you have a white area where the glove was, and a black area that's not the glove, which is very similar to what we were talking about before with masks. If we paint white, we see it. If we paint black, we don't see it. So what's cool about this is anything in the alpha channel, including blue, green, red channels, anything that we do over here, and we're going to use these a lot, can be used as a selection, even though it's a channel. So if we select this channel by kind of clicking in this area in between, and then hold the control button and control click inside the box here, inside the preview window, it's going to load a selection of that. And now if we went back to our photo by clicking on RGB and we were to hit the mask button, suddenly we would have a mask of the glove. So kind of see how the relationship between selections and masks and channels and alpha channels all kind of tie into each other. You know, it's really intuitive to kind of like move something from a path into a channel, and then sometimes we move a channel from one image to the other, and we can kind of manipulate them. So the channels is a great place to save selections that you make along the way. I'm going to undo that because we want the selection, but we don't need it right now. Let me close this out. So the same thing here with the paths. If we control click the path, we can load the path as a selection. So what we want to do is, because we want both her and the glove, because we selected the glove, we're going to control click the path to load that as a selection, her body, then go down to our glove channel and control shift click, and you'll see the little plus icon pops up. Control shift click, and that's going to add this channel to our existing selection. We have both of these as our selection. We come back to RGB, and I'm going to quickly kind of skim through this, but we're going to go to select and mask, add a little bit of smooth, like too smooth, I don't know, maybe half a pixel of feather, and then come down here to where it says output. We're going to output that to a new layer with a layer mask and hit OK. And there we go. There's Mom, our first element to bring back in. So now the cool thing is, again, when we were talking about the smart objects, if we go ahead and hit save on this file that has our selection, and we come back to our main composite file, we can see that we have Mom dropped in. So I think that's a good stopping point for now. We can keep picking it up with the next video with refining the hair and refining the selection and starting to bring these two elements together. So see you in the next one.